It's great to be alive and love. Good morning, sun. Good morning, sun. Good morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and in love.
And good morning. What is today? Sunday? Yes, Sunday, at least in the US. And let me just make sure everything is working. Okay, looks like we are live. If you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen that I had quite an adventure replacing or upgrading my firewall. So this is, I believe this is the first live stream I've done post firewall upgrade. And we'll see how it goes. It looks like it's going okay, but if there are any issues, let me know. All of the streaming locations, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope, accept comments. So if you want to comment, I am monitoring them all simultaneously in this Restream chat aggregator. So with that, so coffee. This is I Need Coffee. So today I am drinking Counterculture. And I saw this on a good morning, Tanya. I saw this on I think a Bon Appetit video. They were making something with coffee and they used this. And I found it at Target, actually, of all places. I couldn't find it anywhere else other than online. But Target has it, and I guess they have several different blends. So this is hologram. Fruity, milk chocolate, and syrupy doesn't really mean much to me. So this was kind of the first one on the shelf. So I'm trying that. So cheers to those in the US and in having their coffee this morning. Okay. So today I wanted to talk about the question, is Business Central the most accessible ERP system for partners, consultants, developers, and I guess even users, but my mindset is around partners, consultants, developers, ISVs, people who help with the delivery of these ERP systems. And unfortunately, no, the coffee is not a sponsor, but I just like to try random coffees. I used to think that I was looking for the coffee, the best coffee, the greatest coffee, but I have learned that it's not really about that. And so I've shifted my focus to just trying all sorts of coffees and not the cheap ones. I've learned my lesson. I do not want to buy cheap grocery store coffee. Made that mistake. It was painful. So I try to find these boutique or fancy or whatever it's called. These better good coffees, and I just try a bunch of them. So this is one. I think I have maybe 8 or 10 in the cabinet in the kitchen. So I rotate through those. So anyway, is Business Central the most accessible ERP system for partners, consultants, developers, and whatever audience you think this may apply to? And this came out of a kind of a side conversation at the end of a recent BC Berinar last Friday, where we were talking about whether it is difficult for someone, a partner, a consultant, a developer, to come up to speed and start working with Business Central. And based on my experience and those that I work with, I would argue that it might be the most accessible ERP system, certainly that I've ever worked with. And just looking around in this field, I'm fairly familiar with the field. I would say it might be the most accessible ERP system, and that's for various just reasons and coincidences. So I'll just share what I think, and let me know if you have any different thoughts. Where is my slide here? So how accessible are ERP systems in general? And I'm just basing this on my experience over the last, gosh, I'm trying to remember, Wow, it's been a while. It's over 20 years. So I've worked with Solomon 4 for Windows. That was the first one I worked with right out of college. That was acquired, and with the Dynamics GP, which rolled up into Microsoft, it became Dynamics SL. I had a project where we did a system selection that resulted in selecting Bon for the client, and that was more manufacturing oriented. And at that time, we were unable to see the Bond software. Literally unable. That's how accessible that software was back then, because it apparently required weeks of installation and configuration just to get the thing working. So the consultants literally could not show us the software. They could show us screenshots, they could talk about how it kind of worked, but we had no access. Even as I was with Deloitte and Touche at the time, we as the big five, big six consulting firm trying to sell the solution, the bond consultants were unable to give us any access or show us anything about that system at the time. So that'll give you a clue as to how things have evolved since then. I work with PeopleSoft. I was a certified PeopleSoft consultant for a couple years. And, you had to be a partner and registered, and you had to have the software through this channel. And it was totally inaccessible to, a person who was outside of that channel. I worked with Dynamics GP, and while it was more accessible than the previous ones, it was still controlled through a partner channel. A new consultant, an aspiring developer who wanted to just play with it, it was not very accessible. At least as far as I know. There were no channels where you could publicly get a copy of Dynamics GP or publicly access a GP environment. There were certain organizations that may have hosted an image for you to test, but in general, it was not accessible. Dynamics AX, forget about it. I, as an MVP and partner, was able to get access to the Dynamics AX demo images. I mean, just me trying to do that, aside from all the access issues and all the impediments, technical impediments getting to it, once I downloaded it, oh my gosh, it was a massive set of VMs. I put it in Azure. They had an option where you could spool up an AX environment in Azure, and I get $150 a month credit on Azure to use for anything for MVP purposes. It burned through my $150, I think, in 24 hours. It was gone because the VMs are so large. It consumed my monthly credit instantly, and I lost access to my Azure environment. So I had to just delete them. I tried to host the AX VMs internally, and I kind of got them, but I couldn't even get it working. It was that complex. So a couple of challenges there, both just the barriers to entry, being a partner and having to use this process to get them set up, and then just all the technical infrastructure required. It was scary. Then we have Business Central, and I'll talk about how easy I think that is. It's amazing. And if people think that Business Central is difficult to get access to, I would say try one of these others and then get back to me and let me know what you think. And for reference, I've used QuickBooks for years, the desktop version, and I've now been using the online version for over a year now, I think, roughly a year. And it is very accessible. I will give them credit for that, but it is QuickBooks. And I put QuickBooks in a different category. It has many of the same features and it can do many of the same things in a certain manner. But I think we would generally say that QuickBooks is not in the same category. It doesn't serve the same market as a Business Central or Dynamics GP or what we would call the mid-market or SMB ERP space. And, you can argue about that. But anyway, so that's my reference point. Those are the systems I've worked with, and I may be forgetting something, but I think those are the main ones. So I would argue Business Central has zero barriers to entry if you want to learn it and get familiar with it. And I mean zero. There is nothing that Microsoft is putting in your way that is preventing you as a brand new user, consultant, developer, partner from getting access to Business Central. And I think that is very unique. I haven't seen that before. Normally it's a controlled partner channel, or you have to sign up, or you have to subscribe. With Business Central, Microsoft has no idea who you are. And you can have a test environment for free to anyone in minutes. You can have the dev tools downloaded and installed for free in minutes. I mean, really, you could be up and running, have a test environment, and start using it from functional perspective, or from developing against it from a technical or developer perspective in minutes, with zero barriers to entry, no partner registration, no sign up, no paperwork, no fees, nothing. And that, I think, is pretty amazing. So this demo environment I've had for a long time. And I think I got it as part of the partner program years ago with, business. They called it financials, and then Tenerife, and then something else. And then it finally became Business Central. I haven't paid a dime for this. It's free. It's hosted by Microsoft. No Azure usage. It's a standard sandbox hosted by Microsoft for free. Pretty cool. So I've mentioned free a few times, I think. Let me just say it again. All of this stuff is free. Business Central SaaS Demo Tenant. I've mentioned several times. Eric Hugard has a video on how to do this. There's an MS Learn course on how to do this. There's documentation on BC Docs or Microsoft Docs on how to set up a Business Central SaaS Demo Tenant for free. Takes maybe 10 minutes. So, make yourself a cup of coffee and click through next. You enter your, an email address, contact info, and they don't bug you. And in a few minutes, you have your own demo environment. You can, if you prefer to have something for development purposes on-prem, you can have Docker containers in minutes for free. You need to understand Docker, but you can run a PowerShell script, and in minutes, it does everything for you. You will have a pre-configured Docker container with Business Central ready to go. And Business Central container in Azure. If you don't have a server handy to run Docker, you can push those Docker containers to Azure. There's a aka.ms link. It has a script, and a few clicks, it deploys it in Azure for free. I mean, you need to host the Azure, you need to pay those Azure VM fees, but there is zero barriers for the Business Central side of things. And I'll share a story that I've shared before with a few other people. I work with a network engineer who lives in Ukraine. So when I have some random issue with my website, or need Linux assistance, or need anything network related, infrastructure related question, I'll just ping him, and I pay him by the hour, and he looks into it and helps me with those issues. So I had a question about diagnosing the weird Business Central performance issue I was having. This was a couple videos ago. And I just sent him the PowerShell script. He was familiar with Docker. He had a Windows Docker environment. And in less than 30 minutes, he had never heard of Business Central. He had a BC container up and running and was diagnosing the network behavior of Business Central Docker containers in 30 minutes. It's that easy. So, zero barriers. He didn't have to have a login. He didn't have to have a sign up. I just sent him a one-page instruction sheet. Run this PowerShell script. Use this username and password. Open the browser. Log in. Watch the network traffic flow. So it's that easy. If you want the full Business Central experience, you can have that as well. $70 a month per user. You can just have one user, and multiple people can open a web browser and you can test with it. No contract, as far as I know, no minimum commitment. You just pay $70 a month, pay as you go. My understanding is you do need to contact a CSP, a cloud solution provider, whatever that stands for, a reseller, basically, a BC partner reseller. And for $70 a month, they will activate your tenant, and you'll be up and running with a full production tenant, Microsoft support available, submit support cases, get assistance through that partner reseller, and you're up and running. I mean, in minutes, you could be up and running with a production version of Business Central if you wanted to. It's that accessible. I mean, really, coming from the Dynamics GP world, you can't do that. You gotta have this assessment, what modules you need, and okay, we gotta have the contract, and you gotta purchase the software. You can go with cloud hosting providers now. So there are a few that will host for you, and you can be up in an hour. You pick up the phone, say, I want a Dynamics GP cloud environment, and you can have those hosted cloud environments now. So it's starting to get close in other platforms, but Business Central is native cloud and very, very easy to do. So, okay, you can have all those environments, everything is accessible, but well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know like how to learn. Well, you may have heard of this page, and this is my Dynamics 365 Business Central resources list. And it's a blog post I wrote back in April of 2019 because there were so many resources all over the place and I was just lost. I was dizzy trying to remember where to go. So I said, okay, let me write these down because I just can't keep track of them. I started to track them in, I think, OneNote or something. I said, well, let me just make a blog post to document this and share it. And so it's a bit.ly/BC resources URL, and that's the page. I now have somewhere, I lost count, so I'm approximating here, 199 resources roughly. I need to recount to confirm that. A lot of resources, and it starts with the Microsoft resources, the AKA MS links, then I get into forums and conferences and YouTube channels, blogs, Twitter handles, you name it. Everything I can find. And if there's something I'm missing, let me know. Or if you're not able to find something on this list, let me know as well, and we'll try to put it on there. But really, I wanted to make this a one-stop shopping location where you could find everything and get started. So just 5 minutes browsing this, and you should be able to go in 50 different directions to learn what you want. You want to get training? Great. You don't know anything about Business Central? No problem. Free learning on MS Learn. I mean, awesome platform. There are 48 different learning paths, and that's a collection of training modules. So you say, I'm brand new, I know nothing. Great. You can do the Get Started with Dynamics 365 Business Central learning path. That's 3 hours of a handful of different, 3 modules. So it's 3 hours, total of 3 different modules, teaching you how to just get oriented with Business Central. So there you go. It's the beginner functional courses, functional consultant business user learning path. Well, there are 48 of those learning paths, everything from basic Business Central to using Business Central with Power Apps. So really fantastic, how to architect a solution. So really amazing learning content there. And yes, it's not the most exciting training in the world. It's next, it's reading, but it's self-paced training for free. So anyone can get started with that at any time on a weekend evening. Tanya will grab a glass of wine and she'll sit and learn Business Central. That's how Tanya learned. I would fall asleep if I drank a glass of wine. So for me, it's morning coffee. Speaking of which, for me, it's morning coffee and digging into some topic. So anytime I want, I can pull up a course on MS Learn. So you want to dig deeper? Great. Tons of resources. There are a few dozen blogs probably that are on my BC resources page, all free, hundreds of articles. YouTube channels. Several YouTube channels are online now. Eric Hugard has a great series of development and technical related videos, and he keeps them nice and short, unlike me. He has the discipline to keep his short and to the point. And so in 10 minutes, he'll show you how to do something technical, very cool videos. Eric also has the Business Central Field Guide. So if you're interested in more of the functional side of things, so let's say you're coming from Dynamics GP or Mass 90 or something else, his field guide book walks you through kind of how Business Central works from a functional and user perspective. And although he is often technically focused, his field guide book is just kind of an overview and how Business Central works from a user's perspective. So a great resource for a user, a controller, an accounting person, a consultant. So there's that. If you're more on the technical side, there are 5 or 6 different books available through Pact Publishing. And you can buy them individually, the ebooks. Sometimes they're on sale for a really cheap price. But you can also just do 1 year. And currently it's $99 or $100 per year, unlimited ebooks. That gives you access to all the ebooks. You can download them as PDF. You can download the Kindle versions or EPUB versions. And you can have access to all of those books plus hundreds of other books if you want to learn about other technical topics, Python, web development, architecture, automated testing, you name it, all those books. If that's what I've done, just because I ended up buying so many, I just went with the annual subscription. So these Business Central books are available through Pact Publishing. So really tons of resources available for Business Central. Let's say, those are great, those are free, but, I'm the type of person that really likes the instructor-led training. I want structure. It's really hard for me to learn and figure out what I need to learn. I totally get it. I've done all of these training courses, so I can relate. So I started with New View Strategies classroom training a couple of years ago, back when this was it was Microsoft Financials, I think, pre-Tenerife. And it was early days for the product back then. It was kind of rough. And so they pulled together a training very much based on the Nav or Navision functionality. And Carrie Roswald Peters, I believe, she taught the class along with her colleague, one of the other trainers. And we had a great class. So if you're interested in classroom training for Business Central, New View Strategies has a great curriculum, excellent trainers. Also, I've taken classes with individuals who are kind of experts in these domains. So Luke Van Vliet, automated testing, test-driven development, fantastic class. I think it was four different sessions, a couple hours a session. AJ Kaufman has an online class on Business Central APIs. Waldo, Eric Waters, has been teaching his DevOps class. So he takes you through the basics, everything from Git on Azure DevOps, all the way through DevOps pipelines and YAML, and explaining why he created his ALOps product and how that helps you and how you can manage BC DevOps pipelines. So really tons of training available if you want to pay for that training. It's fully accessible through all these providers. Very cool resource provided by Sara Avdiani. And every Saturday morning, almost every Saturday, there are a few exceptions for holidays and things, he hosts the BC Open Discussion. And this is like a kind of an open webinar where you can submit questions in advance. You say, hey, I'm having this issue, or I'm trying to do this and run into this issue. He will answer those questions in advance. He'll show you how to do what you're trying to do or how to fix this problem, and he'll walk you through it. And he'll explain everything about it, give you code samples or whatever is required. It's amazing. So if you're having a question or you have a technical issue, you can submit it in advance or you can ask it during the call. And so in my case, this is Saturday morning. I think it is currently 8:30 my time, Pacific time, California time, and it's 3 p.m. India time on Saturday. And I just attended one this Saturday, and I asked, okay, why do I need to do a BC extension just to show a field on a page, even if that field is already in a table. And he walked through why. He showed the code samples. He showed how to use the BC Designer as one alternative. He discussed the pros and cons and covered the entire topic, entire answer to my question live on that session. And then this code sample here is a full code sample, which he's posted on GitHub, showing how to do file attachments in Business Central. If you want to do custom file attachments, you want to import a file attachment, and even how to do an API call to upload that file attachment. He did all the full source code. Really amazing. So correction. Oh, thank you, Don Ron Bonsall. I apologize. I'm slaughtering your name. It's 10 p.m. India time. Currently, I'm looking at the screenshot. Registration ends at 3 p.m. India time. So thank you for that correction. It's late India time on a Saturday, early morning Pacific time in the U.S. on a Saturday. But really fantastic sessions where on average, I think it's about 8 to 10 people actually show up and they have questions and he answers them. I mean, really, this is like every Saturday you have an expert consultant with years of experience with Nav and Business Central answering your questions for free. Crazy, right? I mean, normally you'd only get this at a conference like the user group conferences I attended for Dynamics GP. We had the Medic booth. You were able to talk to the speakers, but having direct access to that type of knowledge, pretty incredible. So, there's that. The Business Central Beerinars. This is more of a presentation style, webinar style discussion, but there is active Q&A during and after the presentation. And this is typically on Friday, late afternoon, Europe time, Friday morning, Pacific time. And this is hosted by Christoph. I'm not going to try to say his last name. But Christoph, another Business Central MVP, and he does a fantastic job of hosting this. He has polls, he has quizzes, really amazing content. And in order to keep this kind of open and, really comfortable sharing, these sessions are not recorded. The BC Open discussions, Saurav does record those and post those because he's hosting them. But the Beerinars, it's kind of a more casual, informal environment where we can talk a little more freely and potentially some less known features that are pre-release. So those are not recorded, but amazing content. If you have a chance, that depending on the topic, if it's of interest to you, some just mind-blowing content presented at these sessions. Like, wow, people showing how they develop Visual Studio extensions, different product presentations, functionality presentations. So if you have a chance to attend one of those, if the topic is relevant to what you're working with, I highly encourage it. Really amazing content. And last Friday, that's how this topic came about. So really, no shortage. If you're a partner, a Business Central partner, you're interested in becoming a partner, you can sign up for the Ready to Go office hours. And this was started a long time ago, back when the Ready to Go program was initiated. And these are calls with the Business Central engineering team, the actual product managers, the engineers, the developers who are developing the functionality and the programs for Business Central. The one that's coming up on December 1st is AppSource. What do you need to do in order to pass validation? And I don't know if this is just technical validation or all the validation, including the marketing validation. But if you're interested in developing an AppSource app, attend this call. So, it's an hour discussion showing you how to pass validation and discussing, and you can submit your questions. Really fantastic program, which gives you direct access to the product team. I mean, this is incredible. This is not, in my experience, this was not available in any of the other products that I worked with. Dynamics GP team probably did have some calls with partners and select customers and things like that, but it was kind of controlled, I would say. This is available to any partner to sign up. So, take advantage of the ready to go office hours. I just signed up for this because I'm interested in submitting a product to AppSource. So, what then becomes the impediment? And I think it's common to say, well, it's hard to learn, and it's not easy to learn Business Central, and I get it, but I'm my interpretation of where that is coming from is not Microsoft. It's not actual Business Central impediments. It's the learning. And I would argue that there are zero impediments to learning. So, what are the real challenges? I think it's time, focus, and just the biological process of learning. Unfortunately, we can't get Kung Fu downloaded to our brains yet. We can't learn to fly a helicopter in 3 seconds. So it just takes time. And I'm facing that now. It's like, okay, I have 1,000 resources. That's not my problem. The problem is it takes hours for me to just learn syntax and Docker and Business Central quirks and navigation and functionality and journals and dimensions and flow fields. So how do I learn that? And unfortunately, it's just time. I wish I could learn faster. For me, it just takes time. I usually have to make a bunch of mistakes or run into errors in order for it to really sink in. I mentioned before, if everything goes smoothly, I don't learn as much because it's like I just followed the steps of some demo or some workshop instructions. And if everything works, it's like, okay, I just did something. I don't remember how I did it. As soon as I run into a problem, I'm forced to really learn it and it really sinks in. So that's very time consuming. So that's the real impediment to me. So if you're a partner who's working with Dynamics GP or SL or Nav or some other product, and you want to start working with Business Central, you have to allocate time. You have to let a consultant or developer focus. And when you're trying to service customers and make revenue and pay the bills, that's hard, right? You're going to have to carve out a day or two or weekends or evenings. For me, it's mornings and evenings and weekends, like now, learning this stuff. And that's difficult when you're running an existing business or you have an existing job. So that's the challenge, I think. But I've worked with a few people who, given these resources, they will spend the time in the mornings, the evenings, the weekends. They'll do the 50 or 60 hours to extend their week. They have a full work week. They'll add the additional hours onto their week to learn. And I know a colleague in Australia, a young developer, knew nothing about Business Central. He quickly developed an entire product based on Business Central APIs. No access to Business Central. They're not a partner. They're not an ISV. No formalities, no forms. They just had a demo tenant, set up API calls against it. They knew how to use Postman. They were using their web development platform. Fully integrated product, works with both Business Central and Dynamics GP, sending transactions back and forth, data flying left and right all over the world. And so they're now offering that product for sale. No formalities, no barriers to entry. They just learned it. So I've seen it personally, and we collectively, myself included, have zero excuses, and I suspect our constraints are time, focus, and the effort required to learn. So that's my soapbox. And I would argue that based on these things and the accessibility, the openness of Microsoft, they're just giving this away. You can even look at essentially the Business Central source code in VS Code or in Git, and you can see exactly what the product is doing. I've never seen that level of transparency in any of the ERP products I've worked with or been associated with. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to anyone who's interested in learning the product. So there you go. Is Business Central the most accessible ERP for partners, consultants, and developers? I think so. So get out there, learn it, play with the resources, and enjoy. and have a good weekend.
Good.